All right, thanks everyone for joining. If you go to the next slide. So Roger and we are going to spend the next hour recapping AWS reInvent, and more importantly, why we feel this year is different from an AI perspective and how we at Presidio have been leveraging both our internal transformation with AI as well as enterprise deployments for our clients. And I also know that our Amazonian friends would concur that we as a whole have crossed the line from just developing AI capabilities to now designing and deploying AI systems. And once you've effectively crossed that line, pilots stop becoming these impressive science experiments, but instead become enterprise deployments that drive outcomes that really matter. Next slide. Now, I know it's been a while since AWS reInvent, so I did want to cover some of the more salient announcements and shifts in the mental model that I certainly took away from the conference. In particular, the day 2 keynote by Dr. Swamy. He started off with a very simple timeline, talking about early computing, how manual it was, that the fact that we had to manage state, everything being super ephemeral, every run starting over without knowing what preceded prior, with every mistake having to be re-debugged. Then he posed the question that I really believe made the keynote, at least for me. What if systems that we build today could actually remember what they've done? Now, that shift from reactive systems to experience-based systems that participate alongside with us versus being just instructed by us is the lens through which I believe AWS has framed their AI roadmap. It's no longer about bigger models and faster chips, although that will continue to happen. We've seen the Nova announcements as well as things like Graviton. It's about systems that learn, adapt, and persist over time. And the key to driving this higher efficacy and, frankly, use of AI is also about seamless semantic alignment. In order to achieve this, we need to build context with as much relevant data points as possible. So how we go about retrieving it, applying semantic understanding, and dynamically processing the response specific to every request. It's actually the cornerstone of the first AWS update I want to talk about, episodic memory for AI agents via Bedrock Agent Core, giving agents the ability to remember and recall, as it's one of the most consequential technology announcements from the conference for me. It actually changes the way agents go from stateless tools to these adaptive collaborators. So think about the ability for agents to now store experiences. Was it successful? Did it fail? What was the resulting outcome? Recalling past interactions across the sessions that have been spawned, adjusting to future decisions without manual retraining and the efforts around that. Injecting memory directly into live reasoning, so taking advantage of things like test time dynamic scaling. And critically, governing what they remember, so the policy controls. And that's going to increase overall determinism and make things more accurate. And so in practical terms, that means support agents that can remember prior resolutions that they've made in order to better resolve a current problem, or a DevOps agent that recalls a past incident that it responded to figure out how best to respond to a future one. A finance agent that might learn an organization's risk thresholds over time so that it can better provide analysis in the future. The announcements of frontier autonomous agents like the DevOps agents and security agent are initial steps to utilizing function-based agents for what will eventually become multi-agent collaboration in the future. And we at Presidio are pretty proud of the fact that we were part of the beta testing team alongside the Q product team to help with developing and releasing those frontier agents. Now, memory alone is not enough. AWS also expanded tools like Strand and Kiro, the development platform, so that agents can act continuously, maintaining persistent goals, continuing to coordinate across a number of different tool sets, as well as having survivability in terms of interruptions. And that's a shift that we're seeing from this whole help me now within this current session versus own the outcome I want you to drive over time. So the idea of episodic memory plus continuity of intent, we are seeing that AI is really evolving from this transient assistant into much more of that concept of a digital teammate. The keynote also introduced Lambda durable functions, and that allows agents to be able to run for months, years, really about stating persistence as well as having fault recovery capabilities. And so now agents aren't just doing planning, but they're also living within the systems with that durability. So they can be incorporated into long running processes, autonomous business workflows, compliance monitoring, or even continuous automation. And with Amazon Forge, you can see pre-trained models from the Nova family that can be tuned to specific model response, very specific to your organizational needs, but the fraction of a cost of what pre-training typically requires. Now, the net of these announcements is that AWS isn't just giving us better models. It's baking in systemic AI capabilities into cloud. Models plus memory plus continuity and durability equals systems that are capable, again, of experience-based behavior, not just acting as prompt response generators. Now, that's the moment that we stop thinking about AI projects as these experiments and start to think about building more autonomous systems that matter. Next slide. Now, in our discussion with clients, the challenge isn't the enthusiasm. Everybody wants AI. The fact that you're tuning in and listening to this webinar is proof of that. The challenge that we see with most organizations we work with is that they're trying to add intelligence to systems or platforms that, frankly, were never really designed to learn, adapt, or reason. And typically, these journeys look like this. You start off with some high-value idea, personalization, productivity, automation, something to help make better decisions. POC gets funded, you select the model, strategy, early demos look really promising. But then as you start to think about enterprise scale or productionizing, you start to realize, the data that we need to make the system actually useful, it's scattered across all these silos. It's owned by different teams. It's governed very inconsistently and rarely aligned to workflows where the decisioning actually gets made. Additionally, the processes that were manageable by humans during the POC phase that compensated for all the gaps, that all starts to break down because now we're productionizing it with AI. So it exposes all those gaps in the system. And that's when the organization will realize that the problem actually isn't the model, but it's the environment, the legacy tech debt the model is operating in. It's why so many organizations feel like they are behind, but it's not lack of enthusiasm or ambition. It's really around systems, data, and operating models that, frankly, haven't caught up to the level of intelligence that we're trying to deploy. Next slide. And for us, this has formed our approach to how we incorporate AI solutions into the solutions that we do co-develop with our clients. And it's not a classical technology stack, but much more an operating model for how we believe AI should work in the enterprise. Quick deployment, quantifiable value. The first is human at the core. Humans were amazing thinkers and cognition, but when it comes to reliably following very complex processes over and over again, or remembering large volumes of data, quickly extracting context from robust data sets, that's really not our forte. So humans need to continue to provide judgment and accountability, especially at those decision points that matter. But we should rely more on AI systems in the way that they're designed, with humans to remain in control of things like quality, but AI handling things like scale, speed, pattern recognition, and enforcing governance and security. Second is agentic and explainable. It's our second tenet. We need to design agentic systems where the behavior is transparent. You can see what the agent actually did, why the agent decided to do that, and what inputs were relied on to come to that conclusion. It's because that level of explainability is what allows organizations and users to move beyond pilots and let AI start to operate within real business workflows. These structured flows also allow for much better determinism and can help with driving efficacy of these responses. The third tenet is accelerators and not experiments. And now we talked about this addressing the pilot problem we talked about earlier. As we have built AI workloads for many clients, we start to see some patterns emerge. And from those patterns, we can optimize component reuse, whether it's code that we've helped write, a set of agents that we've deployed, an architecture we decided to follow or a process flow. We focus on repeatable blueprints that we can then customize and tailor for each specific deployment. And then those patterns can then be deployed, governed, and scaled across the rest of the enterprise. And when an AI adoption is repeatable, as you would expect, the confidence will replace any sort of adoption hesitance. And finally, the final tenet is secure by design. As security, identity, and compliance can't be something that you decide to layer on after the fact. Everything must be built with engineering at its core with trust. And frankly, deployable anywhere, whether it's a cloud curated service, neo cloud providers, or other GPU as a service offering, or some sort of hybrid deployment that requires colo at edge components. If we don't trust that answers are factual and extensively available everywhere, it's going to be tough to garner any sort of real adoption. So we need to embed enterprise-grade controls into every deployment so AI systems can operate within the same guardrails that, frankly, clients are already used to and trust, versus creating something in parallel or maybe deploying an unmanaged environment. Now, when we take these things together, these tenets then turn from something that organizations are just trying or attempting to do, and they convert into something about actually being able to ready to run. Next slide. So putting this all together, human oversight, explainable agents, repeatable accelerators, security that's built in, we end up with the clear question around how does this look like when we actually operationalize this? And how do the principles move out of this framework that you're talking about and into the day-to-day work of modernizing applications, analyzing data, or running business workflows? And that's where Presidio's Human AI comes in. Human AI is how we've taken these tenets and turned them into something teams can actually utilize, embedding alongside AWS services and workflows that many of our clients are already relying on, turning modernization and AI from isolated efforts into something that we can actually scale. Now, at its core, HAI is designed to compress time to value by embedding intelligence directly into how workloads are being built, right? Modernized and operated without losing the human aspect. Human AI is natively integrated into a ton of AWS services. It's not an afterwards bolt-on. Examples would be Amazon Q, where HAI augments engineers, operators, and business users by embedding AI assistants directly into development, analytics, and operational workflows. With Amazon QuickSight, HAI helps translate insight into action by connecting the analytics to downstream decisions instead of allowing them to be left trapped in dashboards. With HAI Transform, if we look at mainframe and Java, as well as infrastructure modernization, HAI accelerates application and platform modernization by utilizing agents to analyze, refactor, and modernize legacy systems faster and, frankly, more safely than traditional approaches. And with newer services like Amazon Bedrock Agent Core, HAI orchestrates specialized agents that can reason, coordinate, and act across systems while remaining observable, explainable, and governed. Now, for us, as we've deployed these solutions for clients, we've seen real measurable impact, up to 80% increased automation across targeted workflows. We've seen 5x faster modernization and better than 2x faster software development cycles that also support complex multi-language enterprise environments. So HAI is definitely not about replacing teams or team members, but really expanding what teams are capable of, increasing span of control by pairing the human judgment component to AI systems that are finally designed to operate at enterprise scale. And with that, I want to hand off to my colleague, Roger Sherwood, to review some industry examples of how we implemented this HAI and AWS AI services for our clients.
Thank you, Rob. That's a great tee up. Everyone listening on the call, the Q&A session is open. If you have any questions for Rob and myself as we go through this, Rob has kindly agreed to monitor, and we'll throw those out as we get them in. So the rubber meets the road. Rob has talked about the takeaways from reInvent. We're going to cover the third column on one of those slides, specifically talking about Presidio solution accelerators. Presidio's on a journey focused on industry verticalization and really how do we take how do we take real life use cases and scenarios and bring them to line of business industries? How do we solve real business problems and challenges, generate the right outcomes? And of course, we're building on AWS. We're using HAI to actually build the solutions that I'm going to talk about in a second. I do want to call out on this slide the industry use cases. That is a greater than symbol. To Rob's point, this is not leading to science experiments. These accelerators, it's really in the name. We are trying to help accelerate the use of AI, the advancement of AI, using AWS services, and really solve and help our customers move forward. So let's start with the industry that's closest to my heart. If there's people out there that know me a little bit, have seen my LinkedIn, I've got a big media and entertainment, telco, gaming background. And so the first couple here are very much born. This was the first industry that we really took a look at, and we really started to understand, what can we do? How can we really take challenges and some things that our customers are seeing today and start to build a solution accelerator that we believe can help other customers, future customers. And so modernizing fan engagement. Our take, the status quo of what is out there today is fans very passively consume content. There are experiences built for fans, but it's very much one size fits all, very limited, lack of personalization. On the back end, how you actually extract data from what's happening, just a typical live event, from a fan engaging with everything that happens in a stadium complex, to taking their seat, to what they're doing while they're in their seat. There's a variety and a huge number of sort of point applications and vendors looking at that, but it's completely defragmented. There's no way to get a holistic view of actually what is that fan doing and how can you engage that fan on a deeper basis depending on what they're doing at the time. Monetization plays a big role here. You have a fan that's locked into a game. How do you combine that with potential regulated gaming opportunities, or bring their attention to what's happening in the stadium from a merchandise sales perspective? So we've built Presidio Captivate. It was designed to take in live video feeds, understand what's happening within a video frame, and using metadata based on what's happening in that video frame, understand and be able to deliver better experiences to fans. So, we recognize that second screens are, playing a huge role as people watch content today. But as you have a fan that's engaged with a game, with content, be able to, make offers based on what they're doing, use statistics generated on how many people are watching certain camera angles, or are looking for highlight clips, or want to follow Lionel Messi for 90 minutes because that's all they really care about during a soccer game. And using that data to then be able to promote, and really engage the fan in terms of loyalty, be able to upsell, cross-sell. And it really comes down to, again, we built this with Amazon Nova, being able to interpret what's happening on video, using AI real time, and then be able to feed that to an audience and to an individual fan. So this was the first solution accelerator. We launched this a year ago. We've had great pickup. We've actually got one customer that's moving forward with Captivate. We're really excited about where this can take us. And I think a key part here, we sort of originally engaged our professional sports organizations, but we found a really nice opportunity in higher education and collegiate sports as well. And so, we suddenly found ourselves talking to athletic directors, college leaders who wanted to be able to use Captivate to really understand what was happening just in local games and league games, in their conference games as well. Not necessarily to drive, monetization of merchandise, but to understand what's happening on the frame, be able to build up sizzle reels for their individual athletes, and be able to study what was happening on the field at the time. So a really nice accelerator. On the lower right of every one of these, you'll see a QR code. You can click on that and you'll find a deeper solution description of what exactly Captivate is. And then the second thing that we've built for media, entertainment, gaming, and sports, Captivate is very much around live content and capture. The other opportunity that we believe exists is what do you do with all of that content? And many customers have told us that they just have literal tapes still lying around on the floor of data rooms. There's so much content that's being captured every single day. I forget the number of how much is going into YouTube on an hourly basis. But how do you actually consolidate content that you have and bring it in, unmanaged, managed content, and actually be able to consolidate that and understand what you have? And that's one part of the equation. The second part is then how do you then use that content to really automatically surface what you want to see? And today, this is very manual. There's a lot of discussion around how do you actually manage a very big long tail archive. But Rob's talked about some of the uses and the tools that we have now to again actually understand video content, audio content, PDFs, documents. Like, it is possible to extract and understand every single piece of content that companies have, whether it sits in an S3 store, whether it sits on tape and it's been digitally ingested. How do you figure out what you've got and then again turn that into opportunities to surface? Presidio Resonate is built on a media lake architecture. And actually, we've built this directly on top of the AWS guidance for a media lake, which is available on GitHub, available for any customer to use. But we're packaging this, making it into a reusable solution, and it's going to drive and extract metadata, content, and store it so that customers can have a really nice view of what they have sitting in their archive. AI will be used to tag the content. The first piece of this is actually extracting, using, getting the metadata out to understand what we have. We can run it through pipelines to reformat it. We can check it for compliance. And then we've built a series of agentic modules that you can then program to go figure out what you want to use that content for. And the best use case, and the one that we really like to show, is being able to extract the highlights from soccer games, hockey games, NFL games. Like, give me the top 10 sizzle moments that happened over the weekend for all the NFL games. Rob talked about having the agentic, being able to see how the agents are actually working. One part of the demonstration that we have, actually, you see the agent working through and understanding what's happening and then surfacing exactly what you asked for. So we believe, from an outcome perspective, content production time, the huge increase in actually being able to reduce the manual time that is needed to manage archives that are terabytes, petabytes big. We also offer services to actually ingest that data. We can actually, run metadata queries, bring that all into the Resonate platform, and then again help you with that agentic layer in terms of how you want to surface that. Rob, any comments here? You talked about Nova and some of the tech that's behind this and how the agents plug together. This is one where we have multiple agents doing multiple things.
Yeah, I think what I'm really excited about is the potential for the future as we start to see agents really being able to have bi-directional communication with each other. I think that's when we're going to get real multi-agent collaboration and this concept of being able to get dynamic site semantic alignment, right? I use lots of different examples where if I asked a simple question like, hey, how do you think the Eagles are going to do this year?
Yep.
That can mean a lot of different things based on the semantic. And so giving agents the ability to be able to understand the exact semantic requirements at the right time, it's incredibly important. And the fact that we're not doing this in some programmatic fashion with development, which is very cumbersome and also something you have to manage, Resonate really becomes one of the first ways that we're starting to see potentially how we can do this. So I'm really excited about how this is going to impact the way that we even think about any sort of data governance project moving forward.
Exactly. That's great. Thank you. Moving into healthcare, this is the second industry that we stood up at Presidio from a solution perspective. And this one actually became very real to me at my last checkup. I walked in the doctor's office. His phone was out, clearly in record mode. And I asked, okay, well, what are you doing? And his answer was, yeah, I'm recording your appointment. Which kind of made me realize that I'd agreed to that as I'd actually booked the appointment online. That was all in the terms of service. So that was a little concerning. Nevertheless, I was asking him about, what that was going to be used for and everything. He said, look, we want to record this. But it turned out all they were doing was storing the recording. And so 6 or 7 months ago, this was the second solution accelerator that we built directly on top of AWS's Health Scribe solution to answer the question of clearly what my doctor was struggling with was in terms of making sure that everything was captured correctly, that our conversation was, going to be logged somewhere in a system. But then what do you do with that? Does it just become yet another recording that never gets listened to? He's talking to me, he's entering things into the computer as well. And so the opportunity here for Presidio is, okay, how do we start thinking and helping customers figure out how to pull all that together? And then we took it to the next level, which was using AI. And again, we brought this back to Amazon, the Amazon Nova team as a challenge. Not only are we logging the conversation, but then using Nova to understand, okay, give me the transcription. That was fairly straightforward. Amazon have a very straightforward service for that. But then tie all that together, actually figure out how Roger Sherwood looks holistically. Even better, did something get missed during my 30-minute consultation? Are there areas that the doctor and I both want to follow up on in a future appointment? And so that's exactly what HealthSense AI is set out to do. And again, this is an accelerator. This is designed so that we can bring this in as a technology and understand and work with customers to really sort of, what's the possibilities here of being able to pull in data from Epic, from other, sort of patient record providers, bring in the appointment, the discussion that we had, and give me as a patient a truly holistic view of all of that data that's been collected over the last 5-10 years and then real time. Rob, I wear a Whoop, so hopefully they're listening and they'll send us some for that plug. But there was a great post by the CEO around how health so the monitoring of my health and your health is turning into 24/7 by 365. And I think this accelerator starts to move customers and Presidio towards that vision, data all the time, being able to impact what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah, so a couple of points that I would love to point out. First, what you're talking about there, just in terms of all of the telemetry data that's available for us, everybody that has an iWatch or you mentioned Whoop
Yeah.
or being able to utilize all of that telemetry data as well as other telemetry data that's being digitized, like blood tests and glucose monitors, in order to be able to focus not just on acute care, which obviously we do a great job of with the current health systems, but also focusing on things like longevity, health span, and preventative care. And now we have an amazing way to be able to apply data to that through various different platforms that ultimately utilize AI. I love this example specifically, not so much because of the function it's serving, because if we think about Epic, Cerner, and these larger EMRs, a lot of the capabilities that you're talking about specific to HealthSense may be available in particular modalities. But what's exciting is what we've been able to do specifically with AWS and Nova in being able to take these, frankly, smaller models and because they're domain specific, have the opportunity to be able to deploy these in a much, what I'll say, more efficient basis. So imagine being able to take this sort of HealthSense solution to a remote area that doesn't have 1,000 GPUs to instantiate some large model in the background. We can still accomplish the same capability. And so if you think about applications of this to Doctors Without Borders or different ways where you're not going to have access to maybe cloud-based services or larger instantiations from a GPU perspective, we have the ability to still provide the same level of efficacy even in those remote situations. And how the team was able to do that was pretty amazing, right? They started with a more traditional, larger proprietary model to prove out the use case, but then figure out how can we then
Yeah, really
get
make
the
it.
same efficacy through agency
Exactly.
using Nova. Pretty
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, yeah. This one was a really, really great solution. All right, Rob, I'm going to pull you in here because you touched on this, the trust aspect of using AI. And the next solution, which we focused on, fintech, our financial services customers, is all about that trust and compliance piece. Financial services remains, of all of the industries we're focused on, the most regulated, alongside healthcare. But look, the status quo is a little similar to healthcare. There's a lot of client data across multiple systems. And once again, how do we pull and help our customers pull that together, consolidated views, single panes of glass, and so on. When we actually talk to customers about how client engagement happens, it can be multiple applications that are being used to again pull together a single view of a client. And there's so much inefficiency with how customers are dealt with in an office or from an engagement perspective. And so as we start to talk to financial institutions about, look, personalization, being able to give a really personalized view of what customers have is absolutely critical to their business. And so how do you bring all their information in, give them their perspectives, but you have to do this with complete trust in the tool set that you've got, and you have to be sure that you could get audited at any time. How do you make sure that you're fully in compliance from a data perspective? And Client Converge is designed to do exactly that, unifying client data, insights, all shot through in very large capital letters, the word trust, really making sure with a high confidence level that the data you've ingested, the data you're presenting back to clients is extremely trustworthy. It's got to be transparent. And again, Rob, I'm going to come back to you and talk about how we've enabled agents to really give a very clear, transparent view of how this data is being managed. And again, we believe strongly that anything that's built in the financial services space needs to be audit ready from day one. Audits are commonplace. It's part of what every banking institution has to sign up for. And so as AI, becomes part of the pipelines that are happening, really being able to build that in is key. Rob, I think just a little more insight into the trust aspect and some of the specific challenges that we've built and worked with.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one, mainly because there is a component of this that it can be argued if what's currently available in terms of overall technology, right? Agents, RAG,
Yep,
vectorization, and the current state of models, because of its probabilistic nature, for things that require higher levels of efficacy, right? When I say high 90s, as an example, the financial example would be, hey, tell me what my exposure would be
exactly.
in my position right now with Tesla.
Yep.
You don't want to be 90 or
No,
92% accurate. You want to be 99 or 100% accurate. And very similar to another highly regulated industry, healthcare, you wouldn't want diagnosis to be 92% accurate. You want it to be closer to 100%. Um, and that all comes down to, and talked a little bit about it as how do we get better determinism out of the way that we get insights out of data, but then apply them in a dynamic fashion to at the request as it's being made, because context and semantics around that change based on the request. And it's the one thing that we're trying to figure out the best way to approach. What I like about at least what we've put together with these platforms like Client Converge is that we're starting to think about, well, where do we see the technology going
exactly right.
and
So,
where it will be positioned? So how can we create a framework that's going to be extensible for when some of these things are more ready, we'll
yep,
be able to easily integrate and slide in.
bingo. Yeah, and again, I come back to that being, for in particular this industry being audit ready out of the gate. So exactly to your point, that's one thing that we've built into this accelerator because we know that's going to be it's just going to be building at the ground. All right, we're going to move to manufacturing and retail. There's two solutions here, two things that we've been looking at, and the first one is around being able to, similar to Rob, to what you said around understanding the data points in real time and maintenance. Rajabal Sekaran on my team, who leads our manufacturing, talks all the time about the reactive and failure-driven state of maintenance, right? And such a big impact on any manufacturer, anybody that's making anything. This is just, it's what they're looking to prevent, minimize all the time. It turns out that, very limited real-time visibility into the health of equipment, the failure risks. Once again, so many vendor solutions that, all are playing and, built into these plants, dual screen, triple screen, just so many ways that these things are being monitored. But again, people are looking for a holistic view. Manual inspections, there is some level of automation there, but, static schedules, equipment gets managed and taken down at a certain time during the week. So how do we get to a much more dynamic view of what's actually happening in a plant anytime and being able to reduce the equipment failure? So maintenance AI, very similar to what we just talked about for Client Converge, is our starting point for how we think operations and manufacturing plants are going to be managed in the future. We've just started to build this. We're going to be announcing this in March at the American Manufacturers Summit. Being able to take in real-time sensor data to predict failures before they happen. So the sensor data is putting out, all this great information. We're going to pull it all in and then start to use AI to really make those predictive analysis, and then helping technicians actually prioritize where they need to go first. Where are the most important parts of the plant that need that focus? We've got some nice statistics in terms of what we think this means, but I think from our perspective, anything that we can do to build here to reduce unplanned downtime, lower costs, we think this is going to be really attractive for our manufacturing and retail customers. So this is coming soon. Again, you can check out for what we want to build here. The second part of this is more on the retail side. And, I think this is applicable to so many customers in all the industries, but how do you match invoice processing as you're taking orders, producing your work? How do you actually manage all those invoices and, consolidating all of that, again, all of that data that exists in paper format, electronic PDFs, and so on? It's incredibly manual work today. And just as we think about AI and, inserting AI into those things that you think can be easily turned from a manual workload into automated, this one is key for us. So Presidio Invoice Management is designed to not only capture all of the invoices, but also match them, look for exceptions. So specifically, the LLM will be building and working on this. It's going to be looking for exception handling day one. And again, reducing errors, faster approvals, improving vendor relationships are all the outcomes that we're looking to do here. So this is one that we're looking to build in the next 2 months, very, very fast, but we think high applicability, not only in retail, but across all other industries as well. Rob, any comments on this one?
I think for both this one as well as the previous one, it's a good example of how we're utilizing the best of what we see with Gen AI and agents in terms of providing decisioning and also more flexible automation of the overall workflow. But then, where appropriate, using more traditional AI techniques that are more deterministic in nature, because we know that you want that consistency and accuracy. And so it's a great example of how we're marrying the two together. You'll hear Gartner talk about terms like composite AI as an example, but they're very similar in the fact that our teams are already starting to embrace some of that approach.
Yep. And the last one here, the last solution accelerator we're going to talk about is focused on public sector. So state, local government, education is a huge, one of our biggest, largest industries at Presidio. We serve a huge number of agencies, local governments, state governments as customers. And as we talk to the team around, what would really make an impact here? What is a common theme that we hear from many of our customers? And it sounds so basic, but my goodness, what an opportunity for companies like for Presidio to come and solve this one. Being able to give individuals, a seamless access to their services through a digital experience. And we're not suddenly the first people to talk about this as an opportunity. Rob, you and I work in tech. We're used to frictionless signups, and it's so easy. And then when you move to changing an address, for instance, or getting a new driving license, in many cases, it is friction full, to say the least. And so this is one of the new solutions that we're building right now, solving for all these logins that you can potentially have across many disconnected portals, again, that they're just not pulled together, multiple logins, usernames, paperwork, processes across all these agencies, and then it just leads to just frustration. How do we modernize this, and again, in a trusted and transparent manner? And so Presidio Public One, Holy Grail is what we're looking for here: a secure login, a single login for all services, and an experience that synchronizes your experience across all of those services that you need to interact with. And again, using AI for dynamic real-time updates. What's actually happening? Is there something? Are there outages? Is there something happening that affects you as a citizen? And then making recommendations for, hey, look, you updated your driving license address, but these are all the other places that needs to be done. Would you like to do this? So, this is something that we're going to be rolling out, I think, in March and April. And it's just a use case that I think hits home for, everybody on an individual basis. But I'm really looking forward to see what the reaction is from our local government customers here. So these are the accelerators that we're working on now, that we've brought to market and are bringing to market in the next 2 or 3 months. And Rob, I just, to flip it back to you in terms of if we want to make a direct appeal to the listeners here, the audience, what's our recommendation for how to move forward?
I think the big thing to consider is that every one of the accelerators that you just saw were not dreamed up or thought of as a cool way to show off tech. They all came from having conversations and investing the time to sit with our clients to really understand what their core challenges were. And based on that, being able to work with them, ideate, use the technology and accelerate deployment of a lot of these solutions. And again, we talked about this concept of repeatable patterns. If we've done this once for one client and within another client at a similar in that sector, is there a way that we can provide acceleration to deploy even faster? And that's really the guts of, I think, of what we want to do is we want to bring the technology and make it real in more executable ways, and do so in a way where, let us be the ones to figure out all of the gotchas and make the mistakes and leverage that experience. Because when tech is moving as fast as it is, you don't want to be the one to have to try every scenario and figure out every failure point to get to the solution. And we can certainly be the partner to help accelerate that journey towards execution.
Exactly. I think the last thing I'll throw out there for every one of the solutions I just mentioned, we offer a workshop. This is we do run workshops in combination in partnership with AWS. We will come in and listen. To Rob's point, if you're having challenges, if there's areas you want to talk to us about, we'll come in and actually sit down with you and help you understand what a roadmap and a path that might lead to one of these accelerators would look like. So I think we're going to round it there. Rob, any questions? Did we get anything in the Q&A?
Actually, no, I didn't see.
Okay.
I didn't see any at all. So I think we're good. Yeah.
We will share the material. Rob and I are on LinkedIn. There'll be contact information if anybody wants to reach out. And looking forward to seeing everyone in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.